welcome back to episode 7 of Down and Dirty Tactics. Today we're going to be going over platoon attack. Now we've already gone over squad attack in a previous episode, which really squad and platoon attacks can be very similar. However, when we went over squad attack, I specifically went over fire and movement, which is movement and firing in the same axis or the same direction. With platoon attack, we're going to be going over fire and maneuver, which is firing in a different axis or a different direction than the movement or the actual attack direction. While squad attacks can use fire and maneuver, and in reality they should use fire and maneuver when they're by themselves, for training purposes we're going to be covering fire and maneuver only at the platoon level. Now earlier I said the difference between fire and maneuver and fire and movement is in fire and maneuver there's more than one axis involved. Usually you're aiming for at least 45 degrees, if not 90 degrees in difference in the direction of fire and the direction of movement. So really what you're going to have is an element that we call a support by fire element that is suppressing the enemy. While that suppression is going on, you have another element, typically a smaller element, that is maneuvering to a flank. Ideally, they want to maneuver to the flank unseen so they can then attack at close range at a different direction or a 90-degree angle to the fire. This means that the enemy force is pinned down and suppressed. They have ineffective fires going out, while a surprising force flanks them from a direction that they're not expecting that negates their use of cover. This overall concept is pretty well known. It's been called pin and flank, flanking movements, pincer movements. It has a lot of different names, but really what it is fire maneuver. You're using one element to fire while another one maneuvers. Now, despite being how well known this concept is, it's usually not really done well. With fire maneuver, it's immensely simple, but we overcomplicate the process. Fire maneuver is the bread and butter of conducting an attack, and ideally should be pre-planned and executed in a pre-planned manner and not just done off the cuff during an attack. Now the unit that is maneuvering, or the actual attacking unit, they're going to use fire and movement. They're going to be moving and firing in the same direction because they're attacking from the flank. So since we've already really gone over that with the squad attack, we're not going to spend too much time going over them. What we are going to address, however, is the support by fire element, as this is really the key to fire maneuver. Now with this new element, the support by fire element, we're going to add a couple signals. We're going to add lift fire and shift fire to your signal plan. What you'll notice is I did not say ceasefire. Ceasefire is not a signal that is given to support by fire elements. For military training, ceasefire usually indicates something bad has occurred, that you're shooting on friendly forces, or during a training evolution it means end the training evolution, stop firing altogether, and that applies to everyone. So you don't want to be yelling ceasefire. For those that play airsoft or blank fire events, again, it's usually tied to some kind of safety thing. That's why we use the term lift fire instead. It essentially means those of you that are providing suppressive fire, lift that fire off of the enemy. Stop shooting that suppressing fire because we get friendlies coming in. Shift fire, on the other hand, means that your fire is getting close to friendlies, but there's still bad guys to shoot at further away. So instead of giving a lift fire or ceasefire command, you're going to give shift fire. That means that your support by a fire element should stop shooting at those enemies closest to friendlies. That's the other friendly forces fight now. They got to deal with it. You're going to shift your fire to the enemies further away from the friendly force. Now, in order to prevent blue on blue, it's very important that these signals are actually transmitted. In a degraded communication situation, or when it's loud as shit, you're going to need to be able to have some kind of alternate signal other than just voice. This is up to your imagination, but commonly it can be smoke grenades, it can be signal flares, it can be launched smoke, or it can be some kind of whistle or something that's a non-voice communication. It's up to your imagination. Now, when you're planning a platoon-sized attack, or really any attack that's going to use fire maneuver, but we'll focus on platoon size here. When you're planning something like this, you want to use the rule of thumb of 1 forward, 2 back. While it can be tempting to try to put the smallest element on the support by fire and the largest element attacking, in reality this doesn't work very well. Remember, you want to get that attacking element, the maneuvering element, into a position ideally without being seen. But even if they are seen, regardless, whenever they begin their attack, it's usually on a very narrow front. They're attacking 90 degrees opposite of the fire coming in. They're trying to attack along a flank. This means the long axis of an enemy force. So there's not very much room to have a large force attacking through here. So by having a large force doing the actual attacking, you really mitigate and get diminishing returns for how many people you send. Additionally, the support by fire element, if they're massively outgunned, they can't actually suppress the enemy, which will make the actual attack and maneuvering part fail. So like I said, the rule of thumb, 1 forward, 2 back. Have your largest force providing that suppressive fire. Make sure that you have any machine guns that you have in that force and use that to suppress the enemy. Fully get their heads down and take their attention. That way you can have that small, maneuverable, fast force with violence of action get in position and attack along the long axis and attack from the flank where their cover is going to be mitigated. Now, as with every other military operations, we still have tactical coordination measures, or TCMs, those imaginary markers on a map that help in planning and help in execution to make sure everyone understands the plan. Now, a couple new ones we're going to add are support by fire cold and support by fire hot positions. As we already discussed, the support by fire is going to be the one that suppresses the enemy. Their cold position is going to be the last covered and concealed position before they can actually engage the enemy. It's very similar to an assault position, except for instead of attacking from that position, you're going to be moving in to provide supporting fires. The support by fire hot position is that pre-planned position where you're actually going to shoot and engage the enemy from. Now remember, the difference here is if the enemy can see you, you have cover and concealment, versus if the enemy can't see you. The support by fire cold is a very often overlooked position that needs to be planned for. It's the position that the friendly force can get into with stealth before the enemy can see and engage them and remain in position until your assaulting element is also at their assault position or in position. So use that support by fire cold position to sneak your support by fire position in, make sure they're still safe until you need them. And finally, we'll cover consolidation. Once that attack is done, you don't want to stop on the objective. You want to keep pushing, just like in squad attack. You're going to push another 20, 50, 100 meters past the objective. That way you can make sure that there's nobody just behind your objective that's ready to counterattack. Additionally, once you've gotten that push through done, if you are holding specific ground, you may need to return to the objective. Obviously, you don't want to if you don't have to, because there could be indirect fire pre-registered on that position that could come and hit you. But if you have no choice and you have to hold that position, you're going to consolidate on the objective. When you do that consolidation, your support by fire element is going to come in. If you've got machine guns, they're with that support by fire element. So you're going to want to bring that support by fire element into the fold, get them into your defense, and start building a platoon defense, which we'll go over in a different episode. Now we'll go over a quick map drill of what a platoon attack would actually look like. We'll start with a friendly platoon tasked with taking a hilltop that is currently held by an enemy squad. The platoon is in a hasty patrol base when it starts. There's a nearby river that the platoon commander decides by crossing that river will be in enemy territory, so he designates that the line of departure. He identifies an objective rally point just prior to the objective. He identifies a good assault position that will be a covered and concealed position for the attacking element to take cover in before they actually start the attack. And then he identifies what looks like a good support by fire position. The support by fire element finds a nearby spot and designates that the support by fire cold. The platoon commander gives his warno, finishes planning, gives the brief, and the platoon steps off. After an uneventful patrol, the platoon reaches the objective rally point. They form a 360 security at the objective rally point, do last-minute checks, and then the platoon commander gives the order to move out to their respective positions. The support by fire element makes its way to the support by fire cold, where it's concealed, and the assault position gets established by the one squad. You'll see in this example we're using the 1-up, 2-back rule. So we have one squad in the attack and 2 squads in the support by fire. Once both attackers and supporters are in position, the support by fire element will go hot, and they'll move up into their hot position and begin engaging the enemy. Once in position and firing, the support by fire element leader will wait until he can determine that the enemy is actually suppressed and then give the signal to the assault element. The assault element will then begin maneuvering. As soon as they get close, they'll give the shift fire signal. That's going to be usually 2 different signals, usually a radio, and then if they have already planned for one, a separate signal. Well, in this instance, we'll say that they popped a flare, a red flare. Upon receiving the radio transmission and seeing the flare, the support by fire element leader signals to his men to shift their fields of fire so they aren't endangering friendlies as they come out of the forest and fully into the attack. Finally, once the friendly force is completely closed with the enemy, they're going to give the lift fire signal. We'll say this is 2 red flares and a radio transmission, and then in addition to that, the support by fire element leader physically sees that the friendly troops are getting too close, so he gives the lift fire command. Suddenly, the support by fire element goes cold and silent, and there's no more fire. The assaulting element fully has the fight at this point. They continue on and clear through the objective and push past it 50 meters to establish a hasty 180. After a minute, the support by fire element then displaces and forms a 360 on the objective. The platoon has successfully taken the objective now. And that, ladies and gentlemen, in a nutshell, is a platoon attack using fire and maneuver.